To date, the coalition has conducted more than 12,000 airstrikes. The United States and others have put special forces on the ground in Syria and Iraq to advise, train, and better equip our local partners for the challenges ahead. Together, we have already pushed Daesh out of roughly 1/3 of the territory that it once controlled in Iraq and Syria, and we're hammering Daesh's heavy weapons, its training camps, its supply routes, its infrastructure, increasingly pressuring and isolating its so-called capitals in Raqqa and Mosul. And the military campaign to end Daesh's terrorism is only expanding. We are also destroying Daesh's economic lifeline. We are targeting and hitting the terrorists' oil production, their refining facilities, their tanker trucks, their cash centers, their illicit banking hubs, and already they have had to reduce the paychecks to their fighters by 50%. So Daesh is losing ground. Not as fast as some of us would like, but losing ground. Losing leaders, losing fighters, losing cash. And you know what? They're losing confidence as well. A week ago, Daesh beheaded 4 teenagers, young teenagers, 13, 14, in Raqqa, kids, because they feared they might be some sort of spies. Haul them out in the square, slash their heads off for everybody to see, and terrorize people. Kids. And as a result, we know from survivors, defectors, and intelligence reports that members of Daesh's rank and file are also now losing hope. But we also know that beating Daesh on the battlefield in Iraq and Syria is only the beginning of what we must do. As Henry David Thoreau wrote, there are 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil to only one who is striking at the root. So we have to strike at the root causes of violent extremism. And we can't do that unless we first understand what those causes are. Since the fighting broke out in 2011, at least 800 Britons have left this country to join Daesh. 17-year-old Tala Asma was an A student at his West Yorkshire high school. But in the spring of his senior year, Tala and his next-door neighbor left for Syria. A couple of months later, he detonated a Toyota Land Cruiser full of explosives at an Iraqi oil refinery, killing himself and 11 others. It may be disconcerting, I know it is, in fact, but it's nonetheless true that some of these terrorists or would-be terrorists are our neighbors, in America too, in Australia, in Germany, in France, in Belgium. Men and women, and yes, children from our communities who are somehow coming to the conclusion that Daesh or another terrorist group is their destiny, not Oxford or a job or a future. Now, some individuals we know are driven by tribal or sectarian allegiances, others in response to oppression. For example, for years now, Assad's iron-fisted rule has played right into the Daesh recruitment strategy, particularly among Sunnis who view Assad as an existential threat to their communities. And having made peaceful change impossible, Assad made violence inevitable. And he thereby paved the way for Daesh to emerge and feed off each other, with the cruelty of each driving the desperate into the poisonous embrace of the other. I want to underscore the biggest blow that we could conceivably deal to Daesh would be to end the war between the regime and the opposition and bring about a political transition in Syria. And that is why the United States and the UK and 18 other nations, including Saudi Arabia, Iran, and every major country with a direct interest and stake in Syria, have all come together to form the International Syria Support Group. For the first time since the conflict began 5 years ago, we have brought all the key international players to the same table. Impossible a year ago. We have negotiated a cessation of hostilities and deliveries of aid that, yes, has been violated in places, and at one point a few days ago was very fragile. But we have reduced the violence. We have helped save thousands of lives. And we continue now to push for the only viable long-term solution to this terrible conflict, which is a political transition away from Assad. We had a spirited discussion at lunch today about, why can't you deal with Assad? Why can't you make something happen? Well, it's very simple, folks. Even if we wanted to, you couldn't end the war that way because of what Assad has done, because of 12 million people who've been now dislodged and displaced and refugeed, and because Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, others will not stop because of Assad's presence. The quicker we help to end this conflict, the quicker we will alleviate the suffering of the Syrian people, and the quicker we can all focus on eliminating Daesh from Iraq and Syria.